Good morning and welcome to Behind the Bower. I'm your host, Susan Martin, Executive Director of Bower Center for the Arts. I like to remind everybody that our podcasts, we want to offer some inspiring conversations, a fresh look at the arts in our community, and provide spotlights on artists, performers, our collaborative partners, our educators and organizations. It's our hope that we can celebrate the universal expression of human experiences through arts, culture, and in our community. During the month of April, if you've been joining us, our podcasts have been featuring guests who have shared their thoughts on the importance of the arts in the lives of our youth, and also in our schools, our community, and their personal involvement in empowering the youth to explore their creativity. So on this final day of April, I am happy to have joining me today to discuss Bower Center's involvement with providing access to the arts pretty much year-round to both our youth and adults, but specifically with our summer camps coming up this summer. And so I'd like to introduce Dana Tickle. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome back. Dana's been
Thank
a guest
you.
of ours before. We're happy to have you. So as usual, I usually start out in allowing our guests to tell a little bit about themselves to our listeners. So Dana, just do a little introduction of yourself.
All right. My name is Dana Tickle. I have been involved in the arts since I was about 3 years old. And I was an only child for 9.5 years. So the ability to make up my own little stories and, have my little dolls be friends, and we had whole adventures. It was just, that was special because we lived on the lake when not many people were on the lake. Our closest neighbor was 2.5 miles away. So, imagination and reality sometimes crossed for me because I love to make up stories. And I had a doll that cried, and my friend had just had her appendix out. So I assumed my doll's appendix must be messed up. So I took a butter knife and cut my baby Tenderlove open and found the thing that made her cry,
Oh, no.
took it out, and my grandmother taught me to sew things back up, so I sewed it back up. And that's always been my trivia question with kids when I say, what would be the lie about who I am? And other things seem like they'd be the lie, but that's the thing that's definitely the truth about me. Just so, but I've done elementary gifted, and I've done drama, English, debate and forensics. All those things actually involve performance. So
Right.
Very important to me.
Right. When you were just telling that little story, so at, what age and did you become interested in performing or the arts, and or what was your involvement as a youth?
Well, I started taking ballet and tap when I was 3. I started taking singing lessons when I was 4. And I was with Miss Mona's dance studio in Roanoke. But then my first performance that was not with the dance school, I performed in Gypsy on Mill Mountain when it was still up on Mill Mountain. Yes, I was the balloon girl. After that, I was absolutely hooked. I wanted to go see shows. I wanted anything to do about theater. I wanted to be Carol Burnett. I wanted to be Lucille Ball. And then I realized I had to be my own version. But, I did, since I'm a redhead, I did pick redheaded heroes.
Yep.
So, yeah. So, I think that it is so important just from the very beginning to have kids involved in the arts. In fact, the one thing, I'm not a fan of the SOLs, and now that I'm not a public school teacher, I think it's fine to say that, but there is a whole performance, or at least oral expression, in just about all of the SOLs for all of the subjects. And I think it's really important because I read years ago an article called the importance of fairy tales in the lives of children. And since we were just talking about Disney, that's even more interesting. Children who are exposed to fairy tales from a very young age and given the opportunity to create their own fairy tales end up, when they start measuring their intelligence, at a much higher level, because they have the ability to imagine things.
Right.
Like, and when I was 6, either 4 or 6, I went to Copenhagen, Denmark, and I saw The Little Mermaid and the statue of the Little Mermaid and Hans Christian Andersen's house, and then my stories started to evolve to include mermaids.
Right.
And I told all my friends there were mermaids in Smith Mountain Lake, and they believed me. And so I kept that going. My daughter, I think, was 18 or 20 when she finally realized how ridiculous it was that I told her in my past life I was a mermaid. So, but if you have a developed imagination, it helps you with all kinds of survival skills.
Yeah.
And I work, one of the other things that I do besides things at the Bowers Center is I go and work with the people in the memory care unit at Brandon Oaks, because my aunt has Alzheimer's. And a lot of times I sit down with them and I tell stories. I just make up stories. I'll say, give me a place, give me a whatever. And then my aunt, not to be beaten, she's always going to come and participate. And so now I've gotten more. There's a woman who was a Holland University professor of English. And so we tell them together. So, even at all ages, imagination is so important. But the arts, we talk all the time about the fact that kids who are really good in playing music or maybe even singing are good in mathematics.
Right.
But kids who are strong in other performing arts, in the acting portions, will tend to score higher obviously in English, but also in history.
Right.
Because particularly if you give them the weird things that went with that part of history, they'll remember things about that part of history because they remembered the weird thing. And
Right. Right.
But then a lot of times during the summertime, we've done all this stuff during the school year, and the summertime it's just kind of a boom.
Right. Let's have some fun and really
so,
explore our imaginations. And
right.
Yes.
And we're going to do a thing with Fantastic Animals this year. I think that will be amazing because kids can just create anything they want.
Right. You were saying, I made note because you were talking about the fairy tales, and our first camp on June 3rd is Fantastical Fantasy and Creations. And it really is, it's your wildest dreams. It's all about using your imagination that week. So I'm really excited about that.
And the Around the World in 5 days, I was thinking about the continents, if we hit on the continents, and, I'll probably talk about kabuki theater versus I'll hit, because there are such wonderful
European theater in the round, and
yes.
Yeah,
just exciting stuff.
Yes, it's really exciting that we have such a great lineup. So I just want to jump in here, and we have another guest joining us this morning. Welcome, Peggy.
Hi.
Peggy Markham is also going to be instructing this summer during our summer camps, and she's joining us today. Peggy, we would love for you just to tell a little bit about yourself.
Well, not much to tell. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I started art really young. I used to love to draw birds. I just love the outdoors. That's when I spent most of my time growing up, is just outdoors all the time, riding my bike. And fast forward a little bit to 2012, and I started to just kind of doodle
Mhm.
in the morning because I wanted something to take my mind off of the constant spinning around in my head about the day's events and stuff. So I found just doodling was really relaxing and the
Right. And
focus.
kind of
And
therapeutic, I'm
yeah, it
sure.
was.
Yeah.
And I actually have a date. My first doodles, they weren't very good. But I found out that was really a good release.
Mhm.
And I mean, ever since then, I started just doing a lot more art. But the funny thing is, now I majored in computer science. I started out with art. And then I thought, you know what? I don't want to do this stuff for other people. This is not going to be fun. It was commercial art at
Right, right.
Central Virginia Community College. And so, yeah, I'm not going to do that. So I majored in computers. And that's what I did for 12 years. But then art found me again. And I'm so glad
Yes.
because I get to teach it. And I really like teaching more than I actually like doing it for myself. I end up doing it for myself. But when I discover techniques and things that I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. I want to show this
Share
to
it.
people. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's my drive in teaching and doing art is just to share it.
Yeah, that's awesome. What are what are some of your thoughts when you're talking about your sharing and sharing with youth?
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on how important it is that we were just talking about the difference between the regular school day and having to do work specific to achieve things with SOLs in our
Right.
state, and how with the Bauer Center for the Arts, it's open to whatever you want to do and to really explore their creativity. What are your thoughts on the importance of that for the youth and participating in things like our summer camps?
I think it's critical.
Yeah.
Because and I tend to take a scientific approach to things. Now, I'm not really like a sciencey person, but I'm a real detail-oriented person, and I like to understand how things work.
Mm-hmm.
And the brain is amazing. Now, public school is so heavily focused on what I would call the left brain, the logical, critical, not really critical thinking, but logical, analytical, which is nothing wrong with that because I think I'm kind of heavy in that.
Mm-hmm.
But the right brain is it's for attention and focus, the creative side of it, a holistic or global
Mm-hmm.
approach to problems. And if we don't, I think it's critical to have art, some type of creativity in the youth's lives, especially in adults too. That should never stop. But especially when you've got a child growing up, you need to nurture that individual. You need to balance the left and right brain.
Right.
And the public school, basically, I don't know if they've taken art out completely or they don't have enough time.
Right.
But I think that was a bad move.
Yeah, we had we had art teachers on. We were just talking about at the opening of this that our podcast this whole month have been focused on the importance of art and creativity in the lives of our youth.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had different focuses. And we did have representation from 2 of our local high schools and 1 of our middle schools, primarily because also we were recognizing the kids this month with our student art shows. And they, were telling us the difficulties that they have, especially now at the elementary age, where they've reduced the funding to support elementary art teachers and they're teaching more than just art,
Mm-hmm.
or there's one teacher that's teaching at multiple schools. So they're only getting art maybe once a week, and
Yeah.
she's traveling, or he, to the different schools to provide art.
That's a challenge.
That's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a true challenge. And, it was interesting to hear from them, one, about how passionate they are, so extremely passionate. And I think it shows in Bedford County, per se, with the work that we saw in our art shows from the middle school and high school this last
Mhm.
month. The kids were so extremely talented because they have
Yes.
great teachers that are so passionate about it. But they also struggle because they're asked to do so much
Yeah.
with so little.
Mm-hmm.
And they're struggling to, offer it to all students. And that's the other thing too, is we talked a lot about when they now hit like middle school, they only have the option of like 2 electives, and art is now an elective. Once you get middle and high, you have to choose to take art.
Wow.
It's not offered as it's not part of the regular, school day. And then when the kids hit middle school, they have other requirements that they have to do, like a foreign language, 3 years of a foreign language, and things like that. And that ends up being an elective as well. And that takes away from the opportunity for them to
Right.
be in the arts. And they said that's a struggle. And I believe it was Melissa Friedewald. She teaches at Liberty High School. And she said, she has some students that they can't take art as a class, but they'll come to her before or after school to do some work or be creative because that's what they want to do, but it's not something that they can fit into their school schedule.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping with us, while our summer camps are up through ages 15, I'm hoping that kids that may not, especially when they hit the middle school, I think that's critical. They're so fun and creative with everything they do at the elementary school age. And then when they start hitting middle school, it's one where they're trying to more find out who they are, but then they also kind of go away from some things, like it may not be cool to be in the arts or to
Right.
play music or to sing or to do theater, that kind of thing. And I hope that I know in years past, we've had some great groups of middle school kids, especially from the last couple of years with the theater camps, that they've
Yes.
really just come out of their shell. And interestingly, I've seen a couple of them that came when they were in like 6th and 7th grade, and they're now in high school. And I see that they're performing with their drama class at their respective high school, which is really neat to know.
Yeah, that's cool.
yeah.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Well, also with if you're getting the advanced diploma, they have put in a slight bow to the arts, but what they did is they said you need to either do a technical arts class or a fine arts class.
Mhm.
And a lot of the kids are feeling like they should take the computer class
Right.
because that's going to help them for college. And the a lot of times things that help them, they have to give oral presentations in college. And I've had kids come back to me and say, I would not have been able to do this if, I included it in my English class, but not everybody does. Sometimes it's just a little touch. Oh, well, you have to just be in group discussion.
Right.
And it's really important to be able to stand up there and for a sustained amount of time
Exactly.
talk.
Yeah, we talked a lot about over this last month about even if it's a student that's not planning on going into educational career of some sort in the arts, it applies to everything you do. In some way, shape, or form. It applies in everything that you do, no matter what profession or direction that you're going in.
And it helps with organization.
Yeah.
I know people sometimes think about artists and think, oh, well, they just have stuff everywhere. But if it was truly everywhere, they would not ever be able to accomplish it. I think about how wonderful the supplies are in the art room at the Bauer Center. Everything's marked and everything. So sometimes there are things that you would never imagine. Like you told me last year, I said, I'd really like to have so-and-so. And you said, if you just go down there and look, blah, 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 it's there already. Right. So that's good to know those things are available.
Yeah, that comes more from me, the executive director's OCD, and wanting things more organized. And I know artists are more free-spirited, but I also want to be able to find the tools and the supplies.
Yeah.
I'm okay if it's a mess during the week while you're doing it,
Right.
but when it comes time to clean up, I'd like for it to be organized so the next person knows where to go get it when they want to use it.
We appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
So, Peggy, tell us a little bit about which camp or camps are you planning on teaching during this summer?
Okay. Got the fantastical fantasy creations,
Mhm.
the art of science, and it's just flown out of my head.
Are you doing
Animal Planet.
Animal Planet?
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah.
And the art of science, I don't know, maybe it should be the science of art, because
It could be.
it
Yeah.
really, the more I read about all kinds of things, so right now I'm reading about heart intelligence. This is from the heart math that was started in 1991. It's very technical. It's got research behind it and everything, which involves the heart coherence, the heart intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
We never think about it, but our heart and brain are communicating all the time, right? A lot of times the brain overrides it because it's like we have all this external stimuli and we have to process through it. But the heart intelligence is intuition and creativity and properly processing emotions, which is really very interesting to me. And then another book I'm reading is Trust the Process,
Mm-hmm.
which talks about how um, creation just kind of sometimes it just kind of happens. Ideas come from seemingly nowhere, but
Right.
the brain is working through it, and the heart intelligence has information that it's gathering from actually the environment and other people. So, and when I look at it from a scientific lens, it's really fascinating, and it kind of helps me kind of calm down. And when I'm doing art, because I'm like, oh my gosh, this looks horrible. I'm not talented at all, but it's like, art is, everybody could do art.
Right.
When we think of art, we typically think of, paintings or, drawings or things like that. But art is everything.
Right.
It's everything you can imagine.
Oh,
And
yes.
science. So I think of Leonardo da Vinci and his creations and his notebooks. They were, we have a lot of those inventions today.
Right.
He first thought of them.
Right.
And he was also, a great creative person.
Right. Right.
Einstein, he played the violin. He loved the violin. He said that brought him the most joy.
Mm-hmm.
And he would play the violin or play the piano and then write things down and then go into his study and, think of all this technical stuff, so it's
Right.
amazing. So
It
art
is.
of science or science of art,
Yeah.
I think they go hand in hand.
Yeah, we really we've played around with this theme in over the years, off and on, and it's one of the more popular camps. Of course, that one, anything to do with fantasy and mystical creatures and characters and animals, are all.
Yeah.
I think these are all great themes this year. And like you said, the science one is one of the things when we were talking about the different themes and as a staff was that the same thing that you were saying is that there is so much, how science and art have so much in common,
Yeah.
and people don't realize that. So I think that's exciting, and I'm really happy to hear. I guess both of you are going to be with Fantastical Fantasy and Creations,
Yay.
correct? Yeah.
Yay.
So, is there anything before we have to start wrapping up here specifically that you think would be of interest to the parents and/or that they could share with their youth that might encourage them to want to come and participate in our summer camps this summer?
Well, I think as a homeschool parent, I started out with public school and then we just pulled them out to homeschool. It builds community.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important because I think, well, I know because I observe it all the time. Get at a restaurant and what is everybody doing at the table? They have their face in the phone. And I think it's tragic. And I think creativity in group settings is really, it builds cohesiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And people are really needing that because we live in a much more disconnected world. Psychologically and emotionally and actually physically too. We sit in home and like, okay, I'm gonna look at the phone. It is addictive. I do
Right.
it all the time, but I catch myself and I'm like, oh no, an hour has gone by. My day is gone.
Right. Right.
So I think more engagement with other people, doing whatever, create whatever. It doesn't
Right.
matter what it is. Just get do something.
Yeah. Yeah. Dana?
I was thinking, I know everybody says, well, post-COVID, but for children, the lack of time in learning, the lack of interaction they had with other people, I kind of think it's kind of like anesthesia. They say for every hour that you are under anesthesia, it can take like 6 months to get all of that out of your system. So if you have a long operation, you could still be dealing with it a couple of years later.
Right.
So I think COVID was like a really long operation. and so it is kids who normally would have just gone right back in there together are now, having to
Come out
work
of
around and
anesthesia.
Yes.
come
love
back
that
out.
Yes.
Yeah. And because I'll just say this last year, we had one where we were going to create a book for the garden.
Uh-huh.
And everybody, we were going to brainstorm and everybody came with an idea, but it was really hard I would say, look, your idea and your idea go together. So we could change that. And how could we put that together? And they were like, well, could we next year or sometimes just do a thing where we write our individual books?
Mhm.
And I said, well, yes, but the idea is you all working on it together.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and the year before we did the puppets, the Eastern and Western dragons, and I talked about what's your view of a dragon, and somehow by the grace of something divine, the kids really did split almost in half. And, this group was working on Eastern and this group was, and so, I put up a little sign, Camp Eastern,
Right.
Camp Western,
Right.
and they'd know where they had left their things. And they had the best time together because everybody had put their hands on it.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I think those are great opportunities. With our camps, there are projects, whether they're working with clay and pottery and or doing some specific art activities, that they can do something as an individual. But I think it's so important that our goal is to bring them together, to work together, and always offer opportunities for them to work together and to get to know each other, to come out of their shells. I always say I love how I watch the kids, that they are from different school areas and even different states, because the grandparents are bringing their grandkids when they're visiting. And we've even had kids that are now becoming like pen pals and
awesome.
not texting. They're like, let's share addresses and let's write and draw pictures.
amazing.
And so it's
Yeah.
really wonderful that they have these experiences and they get to know other people, outside of their immediate area, which is really wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, our time has flown by today. We could talk for hours on this because I am so excited about our summer camps. I can't tell you the themes, you guys and all of the instructors that are participating this year are wonderful. I just want to remind everybody to check our website at bowercenter.org for all the information. We have four wonderful week-long summer camps, 2 in June and 2 in July, that are open to the public. We do have a minimum, the maximum number we can do with each camp is 30 students. So I encourage the parents to get on there and get them registered because registration is starting to fill up. There are some specific weeks that are very popular and those really fill up. And so I just want to remind everybody to go to our website and check those out. Also, scholarships are available. We have a youth scholarship program. And so we encourage every family, if you feel like it's unaffordable to you, please fill out the form online for a scholarship. We turn nobody away. And we want to make sure that the arts are accessible to everyone. So I appreciate both of you all joining me this morning. And again, we are just very excited to continue to offer opportunities for individuals to explore the arts, to build connections, relationships, and we hope that you'll do that by joining us at Bower Center for the Arts. So thank you, and we look forward to speaking with you next week.